This is another episode of Fire Breathing Rob. Please like and subscribe to our videos. We have amazing people on that have done amazing things. This is Dr. Albert Chester, and he was a quarterback at FAMU. And we're going to talk a little football too in this. We're not just going to go straight politics, so that should be a little bit that should be a little fun. But Dr. Chester, thanks so much for coming on the program. Greatly appreciate your time today.
Hey, thanks for having me, Rob. I mean, I appreciate the opportunity. Anytime I get an opportunity to share and open up about myself, I love to do it. So thanks for having me.
But for the people that don't know about you, can you give a little synopsis about you growing up and why you got into politics in general?
Okay, yeah, sure, no problem. Born and raised in Jacksonville, Florida. My father was a federal agent for the NCIS. Mother's been a history teacher, social studies teacher for almost 40 years now.
Wow.
I was always a football player. Enjoyed politics from afar. A historian, really enjoyed history, but after graduating from pharmacy school, working at Walgreens for about 8-9 years, I just really was at a place in my life. It was like when I hit 30, like the light bulb went off. It was like, you have to do more. You have to do more. And I opened up a pharmacy technician program in an area that, people didn't have a lot of transportation. The average income was, well below the poverty line. And really wanted to make a strong impact because, you got to change the mindset. You got to go inside to really make a difference. You can't just work outside. So had some great success with that, had some great stories. And, you notice it's almost like you scratch the surface and you find a bigger problem. So it's like, wow, there's no pharmacy, there's no healthcare around here. So, I'm a pharmacist, let's open up a pharmacy. So did that, had some great success with that. Actually was able to get a telemedicine doc in there. So we also had a doctor in the office as well. But when, really working from a business standpoint in the healthcare system and then from a humanitarian standpoint in the healthcare system, it really showed me like we have to fix this thing from the inside, man. Because it was times when, because at first I didn't want to feel any narcotics, no opioids. I knew what it would do to you. And, I just kept losing money, but we were gaining scripts. We were doing well. I mean, as far as, patients, but we actually live in a healthcare system where you can fill 200 prescriptions of insulin, blood pressure, cholesterol, any type of diabetes medication and actually lose money versus when you, feel opioid or narcotics and you can make, 100 times as much, literally. And that's not what I came to that area to do. That's what I didn't become a pharmacist to be an actual drug dealer. You know what I mean? I came into pharmacy
Right.
to help people. And I knew that we had to get in there and like I say, make some bold changes, man, because we have so many people, making decisions about our lives, but they've never lived it. They've never, going home and, thinking about even the patients who could pay for their medications, how difficult it was. And then, how the system with the opioids, it was just so much that I knew I couldn't stand on the sidelines any longer. And, I tried to be a resource for, legislators, but, it didn't really seem to click with them. And so I said, you know what? I'm for Medicare for all. I'm for so many of these ideas anyway. And I talk to, have these conversations with your friends and different folks. I was like, you know what? It's our time. We gotta step up and get in the game. It's not so much about, political experience. It's about where your heart is, and to be a true public servant versus a politician. I don't want to politicize anything and you want to serve the people. And that's what I hope to do.
Medicare for all, let's be honest, and we're both supporters of this policy. It's really hard because people have been brainwashed so much, whether it's Republicans or Democrats, that this is some big socialist thing, which is a joke. Every other country all over the civilized world has Medicare for all. It has some system like that. And people, we saw in the Democratic presidential primary in every state in the country, obviously, that they were taking exit polls, that this was a no-brainer. Even in Mississippi, which is, one of the reddest of red places, they got over 50, I think it was like 58, 59% of Democrats in that state voted for Medicare for all. They said they wanted that. So with you being for that, and I believe your opponent is not, how are you really going to push this? Because this is a big situation. In a pandemic, Doc, I mean, we need this. I mean, this is like a no-brainer. I think, I don't understand how people can't be for this. Sorry to rant, but this is
No,
passion.
I feel you, because when you've seen people's lives change because they don't have health care, like prime example, I had a patient. He came in and we did free blood pressure, free blood sugar checks, and this was right before I got the doc, because he was the reason why I went and got the doc to come in the office. But he had his blood sugar was through the roof, blood pressure through the roof, and he was a contract worker or construction worker, and he had a gash in his foot. So I'm like, dude, you need to go take care of that immediately. You know what I mean? You need to get this blood sugar, all this stuff. So I didn't see him for a couple months. He came back and his foot was gone.
Jeez.
So you're talking about a guy that's under 50 that if would have had the opportunity to go to a doctor and had health care, he could have curbed that problem and could have still been, working and taking care of his family. Now, he makes his money living on his feet, and now he has one foot. You know what I mean? So I tell people to multiply that by 1,000,000. You know what I mean? Now you got 1,000,000 people, and then you could go even further than that could be contributors to society. Then you got to think about depression that he's going through, what that does to the family. It's so much when that healthcare is not satisfied. And one of the big things what I've noticed, and you try not to play dirty politics, but when it's the truth, it's simply the truth. When you got over 130 Democrats in Congress that take money from big pharma, big insurance to make sure Medicare for all is seen as something bad or something socialist, like this nightmare thing, is just like, you understand why it doesn't work. And for me, I understand that the math is really simple. And just like you said, this is not an anomaly. This is not even pie in the sky. They're literally doing this all over the world and have been doing it. And for whatever reason, we can't seem to get it together. But in the same sense, you have to be pragmatic and understand that there's trillions of dollars that's poured into the healthcare system. So we can't just dismantle it in a year, in 2 years, but we have to start the legislative process to get to that, because there's so many systems we have to break down. And being in pharmacy, understanding, managed care, PBMs, that was the privatization of our healthcare, which really made it a turn for the worse. Like, we outspend all these countries, yet we have the worst outcomes. Right. You know what I mean? It's like the formula has not been working. So, I'm a best practice guy, and you take the best practices of other countries or other businesses, when I have my businesses, and you apply them to your, to your business or to your country for a better outcome. It's really not that difficult, but we just have to get on the same page and stop being bought by big corporations. You know what I mean? That's where it has to start.
As working in that industry, what would you do to, lower those drug cost prices?
So in healthcare, there are two entities that are pretty much unregulated. On the pharmacy side, when talking about prescription drugs, they're called the PBMs, which is pharmacy benefits managers. There's three major ones, and they pretty much control the entire market, and they function without regulation. So they control the pricing, they control they control the co-pays, the deductibles. They pretty much control everything. They can even dictate now what pharmacy you go to. And then on top of that, they own pharmacies. So they're pushing people to their pharmacies. So they're like double and triple dipping. And then on top of that, they're taking these kickbacks and these different rebate payments from big pharma to put these expensive drugs on these formularies to make people pay it. So I always use this example right here. You have two drugs. One is $500, one is $50. The PBMs will put the $500 drug on your formulary because they're going to get $100 or $200 kickback from that big pharma corporation. Now you end up eating, or we end up eating, the cost. So that's why deductibles continue to rise, co-pays continue to rise, and that's why we can't get a handle on these drug prices. Now, what I would want to do is force regulations on these PBMs, federal regulations, to make a clean slate of, like, you cannot go above this price when it comes to prescription drugs. To say, we can go to Canada, okay, that's great, but why should we have to go to another country to get our prescriptions? That we should not have to do that. So we have to go at these PBMs, because the PBMs alone are killing our pharmacy or pharmaceutical market, because they're controlling everything. So we have to put regulations on them to the point where, it might be a suit filed against them, because I've been speaking with some lawyers, privately about, legally, what can we do with this? Because it's pretty disgusting, man.
Yeah,
when you can force a drug on a patient that you have another drug that's just as good, works just as well, but you're forcing them to pay for this drug on the formula. That's unfair. That's crazy. And then you're keeping these drug prices so high, but these other countries don't have these PBMs that are driving the cost like we do. That's why the drugs in Canada are a lot cheaper. The drugs in other places are a lot cheaper. And again, it's a process, so it's going to take a while. But my thing is, if we're trying to get 5 miles down the street to Medicare for all, I mean, we got to get first on the right street and then just keep chugging away. I mean, it's definitely a process. So the more progressives I believe we get in Congress, the more regular everyday people that understand the cries, understand the woes, and just simply can't look themselves in the mirror and accept that, hey, Medicare for all won't work. That's not acceptable. Let's find a way to make it work because it's working everywhere else. So you got to get like-minded people in there, and people really understand.
What are you hearing from constituents as far as their most important issues?
Yeah, and interestingly enough, this COVID has really pulled the cover off, or pulled the little Band-Aid off this gunshot wound we've been just trying to hide so many problems with. And the problems aren't new. They're just, completely, just out there now. And it's always been healthcare. When you talk to the senior citizens and you talk to older folks, they understand health is wealth. Now, when it comes to, the more millennials or the younger generation, student loan debt, really trying to get things going to kickstart their life seems to be the most important. So it's kind of like that healthcare and economic growth and development that we really want to push to. And being a student of history and enjoying history, it's like history tends to repeat itself. Even though this is the worst health pandemic, in our lifetime, and then you see in the worst economy problem in our lifetime too, you got to think back to the days of the Depression and how did they get out of there. It's like, as much as being a private business owner, I can appreciate capitalism and things like that to better yourself. At the same time, regulations must be put in place, because we let when there's no balance, that's when everything crumbles. When you let too much private business get involved, when it's profit over people, that's never going to work. And then you have to have the government, who they always say, well, we need less government until they need to bail you out. You know what I mean? It's like, again, it's going to take the government using that federal jobs program, similar to what FDR did, to bring us out of that, because we have so many things that we need to get fixed, need to get updated, so much opportunity, and we have to see it as that. And it's going to take the government not just cutting these checks or another stimulus that people on Main Street really, really don't feel. The majority of people don't. We need to have a plan in place similar to that of FDR to get us back to work and get us going, just like we did, in the 30s.
Dr. Albert Chester here on Fire Breathing Rob. Doc, let's talk about this. When you get elected to Congress, what are 3 bills that you would try to push to get passed that are important to you?
Okay. Well, we are in the process of actually writing a few, because that's kind of our goal. But
Right.
to summarize, as far as the subject matter, it would definitely be moving towards splintering or hitting those PBMs, to bring more regulations on that, because I think as a pharmacist, I can explain that in detail. That would make sense. And on top of that, when you're really transparent, it's going to push and put some pressure on those other representatives to answer the call. You know what I mean? We want to let everybody know this is possible. This is the process of where we should be going. So, writing some legislation to get us on a pathway to Medicare for all. And then with the police reform, taking a look at what President Obama did and where we are now, and really comparing and contrasting, and writing something, preparing something that we can move forward with, so we don't have to keep going back to the same thing over and over and over. Another piece is, as someone who supports the Green New Deal, we have to get these regulations back in place that, the current president has been rolling back, and, other conservatives have been trying to roll back. So, between the health, between the criminal justice, and as far as the environment, I think those are 3 things I can kind of work together with people who are like-minded and really explain and push that through Congress to be the most effective immediately. But we do have some other things in the works, but I think those 3 would be the top 3 priority right now.
I want to talk a little football with you. Being that star quarterback at FAMU, first of all, what has football taught you throughout your life?
Okay, well, football to me, and I really hope that everyone gets this out of, any sport they
Yeah.
play, is that it's essentially a microcosm of life. You know what I mean? It's going to take teamwork. It's going to take planning. Sometimes things won't work. Sometimes they'll work great, but you just have to stay focused. You have to work together. You have to work hard. I mean, everything from, the preseason workouts to the in season to the actual game, I can apply that to not just my business, but when I was in school, and now taking it to this step, to try to represent, the people of the 5th congressional district. So every little piece of the game, I took away from it and can, use the concept and apply it to life. When you talk about, everything is going good, then all of a sudden everything starts going bad. What are you going to do? How are you going to respond? Or, when you get to the game, you need to have a plan. Just like, going to Congress, obviously you're going to be a freshman congressman, but go there with a game plan so you have a focus. And it may go right or left, but you still have that plan, and you're going to, do your best to stick to it, because this is the formula to get you to win. And then working with other folks from different backgrounds and getting on one accord to move the ball down the field. Are you going to have some defense? Of course. Are people going to make mistakes? Of course. But it's just like, don't do your best not to make the same mistake twice. And, we'll be fine. Keep a good attitude. And it's all about moving the ball down the field. My coach used to say, matriculate the ball down the field. Just keep moving it forward. And that's what we have to do, and don't look back, because you can't move forward looking back. But you can learn from it. And, that's just what I hope to do, and continue to win. We win in everything. And it's kind of like, sometimes people have like a real good game, and the other person won't get as much shine or whatever. And you still congratulate that person, because it's still the betterment for everybody. You know what I mean? So if Representative Ocasio-Cortez gets to pass something, it's not going to be about Albert Chester saying, "Man, I wish they would have put my name on it." No, if this is the best thing, like, let's get it done. You know what I mean? So it's all that goes into it. And like I say, just excited by the opportunity, man. Just glad when can celebrate anybody that's moving this country forward and putting us in the best position we can be in.
We saw our former Patriot, former San Diego Charger, Junior Seau. He's killed
Yeah.
himself. We see a lot of football players that are killing themselves. A lot of people are saying that's due to all these hits to the head, all the concussions. With that said, a lot of people aren't letting their kids play football now. You have a couple of kids. Are you giving them kind of that open decision, saying, hey, if you want to play, you want to play? Are you worried about them? Are you worried about this happening to people in general now?
Honestly, man, I really am. As somebody who's essentially like a third generation football player,
Right.
because my
Your
granddad, he
dad.
played in college, and then my dad and uncles, of course, played, and that was like our culture. That's what we did. And you never knew or never thought about the long-term repercussions of it. And my dad has some ailments now. Luckily nothing as far as brain, but your body. You know what I mean? Your body takes a pounding. It's a tough deal. But as a father, I'm holding my kids back off as long as they can, like long as I can, until they probably just gonna just sneak and do it anyway. But yeah, I don't encourage people to jump out and start playing football early, just because so much is developing your brain and everything. I mean, you got years and years to take that pounding. And the good thing about it is technology is catching up to issues to combat that. You have these helmets that are more prone to resist or prevent concussions, which is a great thing. But it's inevitable that you're going to get that bell rung. And it's when people ask me, when you gonna let your kids play, I really don't see them playing football until maybe 12, 13 at the earliest, because it's just so much. It's a lot. And that's one of those games where, I hate when people say, I'm gonna make my kid tough and put him in football. That's not really the play. You know what I mean? You because it's so risky. Like I had a friend that he actually he died about he died some years ago, but he had played ball, of course, and he got paralyzed from the neck down. Great kid, man, very smart. And it's just like, that thought of getting hurt like that never crossed my mind until I saw him. And he always kept a good attitude, named JT Townsend. Great guy. And it's just like, wow, like the things he could have probably done in this world, because he did it from a wheelchair. If he would have been able to be more mobile or still been alive, the great things he could have done. So it's just like, it's a risk with all that, you know, and you can't live your life scared, because that could happen in a car accident. That could happen anywhere. But you want to be, you know, take the right precautions. And, you know, I want my kids to be in a position where their body has developed, you know, for the most part, and they want to play. You know
Well,
what I mean?
Doc,
You have
it's
to,
not even, sorry to interrupt you. It's
I know.
not even that. It's, you know, I'm sure when your grandfather played, it was really crazy. Then your dad played, it was still bad as far as hitting and stuff. And then when you played, it was bad. But now it's, you know, it's cleaned up a lot. You can't really touch the quarterback, you know, like you used to. But I mean, let's be honest. It's true. I'm sure you admit that too, that it's a lot safer now than it did when your grandfather, your dad, and even
Oh
you
yeah.
played.
But you know, you like, now people are bigger, stronger, faster.
True.
So it's literally like car accidents constantly. You know what I mean? And like you said, they have cleaned up the rules. And I think, you know, this next generation will have played under rules that are safer. So, you know, hopefully you know, you see a decline with the equipment being more advanced, as well as, you know, people learning the proper way to tackle and not spearing and different things. So I mean, I honestly, I still love the game. You know, it's too bad everything's going on now, but shoot, I mean, I know a lot of people don't like Tom, but you got to respect him.
I
So
agree.
I look
Yeah.
forward this year to probably a lot of old Super Bowls, or some Charlie Ward or some Peter Ward or different guys
Yeah.
like that, you know, just
Florida
kind of
State.
reminiscing
Yeah.
on those. So yeah, or even, you know, some of the other guys in Miami and different spots. So,
So what team is your favorite team, Doc?
you know what, honestly, man, and people ask me this all the time, I've always been a fan of players,
Okay, fair
like
enough.
specific players. So I can really enjoy any game. You
Mhm.
know, so even though, you know, people hate the Patriot, it's like when you watch Tom, it's almost like watching Jordan. You know, I used to like to watch Peyton. I like to watch, you know, a good running back like Saquon Barkley, or even like your guy out in Patty Mahomes out in
Right,
Kansas
in
City.
Kansas City, yeah.
Yeah, Phillip Rivers. He was always, I mean, he could always load, you know, throw for a whole bunch of yards. Drew Brees, because I'm only 5'11". Drew might be 6 feet. You know,
That's true. So
who
then,
else?
Doc, who's the best quarterback, Peyton or Brady? Say it.
Man, you already know.
Okay.
Super Bowls don't lie. How many you got? 6?
Yeah, 6, yeah.
You
He
got
should have
6,
had
man.
more if the Patriots weren't so damn cheap. If they had some offensive weapons around them. And I believe, and then I have one more question before we end the interview. I believe that's why he left, because, you know, last year, I mean, if you watch any Patriots game, he had no wide receivers around him. Once Antonio Brown got kicked off and he had his own
Yeah, that was.
issues, that was it. And him and Brady got along like peanut butter and jelly. But you know they couldn't keep him because he had some issues that he's got to work out himself in general. Can you tell people how they can find more about you and help out the campaign? You know, early voting has already started, and we know the election is August 18th, and you're running for Congress in District 5. So can you tell people, Doc, how they can help you out in these last few days before the election?
Okay, yes, of course. You can find information about myself and the platform and what we're doing on www.albertchester.com. Again, that's www.albertchester.com. We're on Facebook, Albert Chester for Congress, Instagram, Albert Chester for Congress, same thing with Twitter, Albert Chester, the real Albert Chester. So just, you know, we're covering 8 counties, and we're just moving and grooving throughout. And if you're not in town and you want to make some phone calls, that'd be awesome. If you are in town, we're doing sign waving. You'll see me bouncing all around. I try to be, 5-6 sites a day. And just, just really having a good time, and letting people see that energy, that passion, because that's what it's going to take to get us out of this crisis. And I've been hesitant and slow to, talk good about myself, because that's just not me, because it's not about myself, it's about moving it forward. But when it comes to having leadership versus just a politician, I know that I am the man for the job. And I tell people all the time, I looked you in your face, now you can trust me. If I go back on that, I'm gonna come back and see, and you can punch me right in the face. if I don't live up to it. So to protect my face, protect myself, you elect me, and I'll be sure not to let you down. We got some great things, and smart enough to know what I don't know. It's just like you said, Robert. I can talk about healthcare till I'm blue in the face, but other things I may not be abreast on. But I'm always open and looking forward to getting better and learning more, even to the point where having coalitions to that I can refer to, and they can bring me things. When it comes to small business, when it comes to social justice, when it comes to different things, different issues that we have, I just want to be that true voice for the people, from all people, from all walks of life, because that's what it's going to take.
Hey, Doc, thanks so much for your time. This is Dr. Albert Chester. Remember, if you're in Florida Congressional District 5 and it's a big district, definitely donate to this man, whether it's time. If you can do it financially, definitely try to do that. Let's definitely do this again down the road. I really enjoyed this.
Okay,
All
sounds
right.
great.